So, how do you make a lifetime of savings last for, well, a lifetime of retirement? It's the one question every single retiree has to face. And believe me, the stakes could not be higher. And hey, if you're finding it tricky, you're in good company. The Nobel Prize winning economist William Sharpe literally called this the nastiest, hardest problem in finance. And you can see why, right? For decades, you're focused on one thing, accumulating. And then, boom, you have to flip the switch and start decumulating. And suddenly, the playbook is gone. It really boils down to this incredibly tense balancing act. I mean, it's like walking a tightrope. You spend too much, you risk that absolute nightmare scenario of your money running out. But you spend too little, and you might not even get to enjoy the retirement you worked so damn hard for. Now, what makes this so incredibly difficult are two giant unknowns you have to plan for. First, you have no earthly idea how the stock market is going to perform over the next, say, 30 years. And second, you don't know exactly how long you're going to live. It's like trying to find your way through a maze completely in the dark. For decades, though, there was this one simple, almost beautiful answer to this super complex problem. It was a rule of thumb that brought a real sense of calm to all the chaos, the 4% rule. And the person we have to thank for it is a guy named William Bengen. And what's so fascinating about him is that he wasn't some Wall Street lifer. Nope. He was an MIT-educated rocket scientist who decided to point his incredible brain at this very human, very messy financial problem. Talk about a career pivot. So, after all his research, Bengen came up with this guideline. Basically, a retiree could take out 4% of their portfolio in year one of retirement. Then every single year after that, they take out that same dollar amount, just tweaked for inflation. His historical data showed this had an incredibly high chance of making sure their money lasted for at least 30 years. Okay, let's make this real. Imagine you retire with a $2.5 million portfolio. In your first year, you take out 4%, which is $100,000. Easy enough. Now let's say inflation is 2% that year. In year two, you withdraw $102,000. The key, and this is absolutely critical, is that you make that same inflation adjustment to the dollar amount every year, no matter if the market is soaring to the moon or crashing and burning. And this right here, this is exactly why it got so famous. The famous Trinity study backtested this whole idea, and as you can see, a 4% withdrawal rate from a basic 50-50 stock and bond portfolio had a 100% success rate over 30 years. 100%. But look what happens if you just get a little greedy and bump that up to 6%. The success rate just plummets to 43%. That 4% number really felt like the magic key, didn't it? But here's the thing. The world of 1994 is, well, it's not the world we live in today. And this simple, static rule is starting to buckle under some pretty serious modern pressures. Let's just compare for a second. The rule was designed for a 30-year retirement. But today, people are living longer, and many of us need our money to last 35, maybe even 40 years. It assumed low, stable inflation. We've all seen how that can go out the window. And that classic 50-50 portfolio, it might not give you the growth you need anymore. But the real boogeyman here is something called sequence of returns risk. This is the danger of getting hit with bad market returns right at the beginning of your retirement. Think about it. If you're pulling money out of a portfolio that's also shrinking fast, it creates this vicious cycle that can do permanent damage, damage you might never recover from, even if the market comes roaring back later. You know, the financial world doesn't sit still, and neither does the thinking on this. In fact, even the guy who created the 4% rule, William Bengen himself, went back and revisited his own groundbreaking work with a totally fresh perspective. And here is where it gets really interesting. In his latest research, Bengen says the new worst-case scenario safe withdrawal rate isn't 4%, it's actually 4.7%. I know, right? Wait, what? You would think with all the challenges today, the number would go down, not up. This is a super fascinating and honestly a pretty counterintuitive update. So what gives? How did the number go up? Well, the simple answer is diversification. His original model was pretty basic, just large U.S. stocks and bonds. But his new, updated model adds in other things, like U.S. small-cap stocks and international stocks. And get this, he found that just adding small caps alone bumped the safe rate up significantly. It's just a powerful lesson that a more diversified, modern portfolio can actually be stronger and support a higher withdrawal rate. And he didn't stop there. His thinking evolved. He now says your starting withdrawal rate shouldn't just be one fixed number for everybody for all time. Instead, it should actually be adjusted based on what the economy is doing the moment you retire, specifically looking at how expensive the stock market is and what's going on with inflation. So, this evolution in thinking, from a static number to a more responsive one, it really leads us away from a fixed rule entirely. It points us toward a more flexible, dynamic way of thinking. So instead of a single number, I want you to think of it like a set of guardrails on your retirement highway. So let's really break down this new way of thinking. The 4% rule is basically set it and forget it. Your spending is fixed. The guardrails approach, on the other hand, is dynamic. It actually adjusts to what the market is doing. It's not a single rule you follow blindly. It's a framework that helps you make smart decisions year after year. It's a total mindset shift. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, this popular method from Jonathan Guyton and William Klinger is a great example. You start with a target withdrawal rate, maybe even something higher, like 5%. Then you set your guardrails, your lanes, let's say at 4% and 6%. Now, if a bad market year makes your withdrawal rate jump past that 6% upper guardrail, that's your warning light. It means you make a small spending cut the next year to get back in your lane. But on the flip side, if a fantastic market year pushes your rate below that 4% lower guardrail, congratulations, you get to give yourself a raise. So here's the catch, the most important part of this whole strategy. For guardrails to work, you absolutely have to have the discipline and the willingness to tighten your belt when the rules say so, especially when it's emotionally the hardest thing to do. It's a trade-off, really. You get to start with a potentially higher income in retirement in exchange for being flexible when the markets get choppy. What we're really seeing here is a huge shift in how we should all be thinking about funding our retirement. It's a move away from a simple one-and-done calculation to something that's much more, well, alive. Look, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Modern retirement planning isn't about finding some magic number on the day you retire and carving it into a stone tablet. It's about building a flexible roadmap, a living, breathing strategy that you are constantly monitoring and adjusting based on how your life and the markets actually play out. And that really brings us to the final question, the one for you to think about. When you look at your own financial future, is your plan built like a rigid, concrete rule? Or is it designed to be an adaptable, flexible roadmap, one that's ready for whatever this journey called retirement brings your way?